If you've ever wondered whether or not you've been cursed, or you're curious about curses in general, this is the video for you. In my line of work, I get a lot of people coming to me saying, Rhea, I think I've been cursed. I think someone's done a spell on me. Can you tune in psychically and let me know? And out of the hundreds of people that have come to me with this, only 2 of them have been authentic. So in this video, I'm going to share with you one of those stories. I'm going to talk about what it takes for a curse to be effective. I'm going to share with you how I remove the curse, a little bit of the history on curses, but not too much, and also if it's not a curse, what is it? So let's get stuck into this topic. I'm going to start at the very beginning. What is a curse? Now, generally, a curse is the intent to use supernatural powers, supernatural forces, or spirits to cause harm or inflict pain on another person. Now, curses have been around for centuries. It's been dated back to at least 5,000 years ago in ancient Egyptian texts. It's also seen in cultures such as Greek, Celtic, Irish, Roman, and Jewish culture have always talked about the power of curses in their history and their culture. Curses are a very common thing, which is easy to see why people may suddenly feel or think they've been cursed. So let's talk about, if it's not a curse, then what is it? Generally, curses are connected to shame and suffering. And when we're feeling shame, it's a very difficult emotion to process. So sometimes we're like, oh, I really don't want to feel this. And the mind will come in to rescue us from that feeling of shame. Now, this is what the mind will do in this situation. It will look for something external outside of yourself to attach or connect the feeling to. Now, if you grew up in a superstitious family, or you're very spiritual, or you practice magic, it's very easy for the mind to go, ah, you've been cursed. This situation is because someone's done magic on you, there's an entity attached to you, or you've been cursed. So it's easy for the mind to trick us into believing that's what's happened, because it's trying to keep us safe from feeling a very difficult emotion. So this is where I come in. I'm able to tell you if it's an emotional blockage that needs to be acknowledged, or if it's actually a curse. Now, because I work with so many different people from many different backgrounds, because I'm an international psychic, I've worked with people from so many different cultures. So I've had a lot of different types of people come forward and ask me about curses. So let's have a chat about what makes curses effective. There are 3 components to this. The first one is power. So to make a curse effective, you need to have magical power, and you need occult knowledge and know-how. You can't just go and get a spell off the internet with no magical knowledge or practice and then cast a spell on someone, do your little spell jar, put them in the freezer, and then they're cursed forever. This is not how magic works. If you are a professional occultist, practicing witch or magician, you know that it takes time, energy, and dedication to gain real occult knowledge, wisdom, and magical power to change your reality at your own will. So firstly, you need to have really solid, strong occult knowledge and an understanding of how energy and power really works. Number 2, emotion. For any type of magical working to be effective, there needs to be a connection to your emotional experience. Now, this is across the board with practicing magic, and it's something that's actually not spoken into very often. If you are disconnected from your emotion, how you feel, and your body, your magical practices are not going to work. So if you're generally avoidant, suppress, repress your emotional experience on a daily basis, you can't just suddenly connect to your emotions and then use them in a magical working. This is why I harp on so much about doing emotional work, because it will strengthen your magical practices. Now, I'm not telling you this so that you can go out and be more effective cursing other people. I'm actually completely against baneful magic. However, I'm speaking into why curses are so rare and it's very hard to make curses effective. So for a curse to be effective, the emotion needs to be there. There needs to be acknowledgement of the emotion. It needs to be felt at the deepest level available. So obviously, if you're wanting to curse someone, you need to be connected to the feeling of pain, suffering, anger, because that is the very thing you're inflicting on the other person. So let's get stuck into number 3, receiving the curse. Now there's 2 elements to this. The first element is the person needs to be severely insecure, because for the curse to work, it needs to attach itself to the person's pain and suffering. What you're doing is you're transferring your pain and suffering energetically to the other person. So it needs an anchor point. And generally this is insecurities and shame. So if this person hasn't done much emotional work on themselves, hasn't processed and acknowledged their own shame, has a lot of insecurities, then a curse is going to take hold of one of those insecurities and then amplify it. It's got something to attach itself and then feed into. And that's why a curse can work. If you're someone that's very solid in yourself, you've done a lot of emotional work, you've taken ownerships of your own triggers and activations, it's very difficult for anyone to curse you because you're a sovereign being that is in control and aware of everything in your mind. Nothing can have power over you. But if you haven't done that work, there's a lot of opportunity for things to influence you without you even realizing. Secondly, if you grew up in a superstitious culture, you're more likely to believe that curses are real. There needs to be a belief that this is possible in the first place. So we're going to use Greek culture as an example of the belief in curses. Now, curses have been a part of Greek culture and have been ritualized into their experiences for thousands of years, dating back to Greek mythology when the gods would curse each other. And just have a think about the evil eye. It's everywhere in Greece and it's like protecting them from being cursed. So if we continue to use Greek culture as the example, they have all 3 components. 1, they have all the occult knowledge and wisdom. It's part of their history. 2, they've always been a very expressive culture, especially with their emotions. And 3, they believe deeply in curses. So they have all 3 elements to really create curses and receive curses. And why I'm using Greek culture as the example is because the person that came to see me who was cursed was Greek. And I'm about to get into that right now. So let's chat about the client that I had that had a curse. So this client didn't come to me because they thought they were cursed. They came to me because they were having issues with their finances and creating abundance in their life. So they booked in saying, "Hey Rhea, I don't know what's happening. I'm trying to improve my financial situation, bring and attract more abundance into my life. I've done a lot of emotional work around this, but I feel like there's something that's happening that I can't see. Can you tune into it psychically for me?" And I was like, yeah, of course, let's get started. So what I do is I tune into the person psychically, and I'm tuning into their energetic field around finances and abundance, and I'm looking. And then all of a sudden, I see a jinn. Now, I've only ever seen a jinn once before. This is weird because my client is Greek and jinns are a part of Middle Eastern folklore. They are a spirit or an entity that you invoke using a smokeless fire, and they can generally take over the free will of other people. Jinns are not safe to interact with or work with. Even if you're a very well practiced occultist, working with jinns is dangerous. I do not recommend it. They're tricksters. So I tune back into the jinn and I'm feeling into the energy of the jinn, what the jinn wants to tell me, but not really trusting what it wants to tell me because I know it's a trickster. But I'm looking for information in the field, so to speak. So as I tune into this more deeply, and going back decades, I suddenly get a vision of someone from her family lineage with blood on their hands. Now, when I see blood on someone's hands, it usually means an act of violence through an emotional experience. So either they got angry or they killed someone in rage. It wasn't something that was planned or premeditated. So when I got a little bit more curious, what I saw is that someone from her family line had killed a Middle Eastern person. And the family of that Middle Eastern person then cursed her family. So the family that obviously created this curse had someone in the family that had occult knowledge and wisdom. They had the emotional experience of anger, betrayal, hatred, loss, grief. And they also believed in curses. So this is why both sides of the family, one was able to create the curse and one was able to receive it. That jinn connected itself to that family line. And the curse stayed with the family and constantly was affecting their belief systems around receiving financial benefits and abundance in their life. And the jinn went from person to person to person to her. It had followed her all the way down. Now, the reason that the jinn was able to connect to this person is because two things. Her insecurities around building financial wealth in her life. So again, the curse had something to attach itself to. She had inherited the same belief systems from her parents, both ways. The insecurities around finance, and also in her culture, the belief around curses. So this curse was just going to keep coming down the line until someone had pointed it out and realized that's what was happening. Now, the really funny thing about this is when I told her this, she kind of laughed and went, oh, someone had actually mentioned to her quite a long time ago that she felt that there was a curse that had been passed down from the family line. It wasn't until she came and saw me that we were able to go a little bit deeper with it and look at where the curse came from and why it was able to be attached to her after all these decades. So now I'm going to talk about how we went about removing the curse. Now, whenever I'm working with someone, I'm always tuning in psychically. Even though I have a background in magic, my intuition is always the first thing that I will use. So when I was tuning in, talking to my guides and her guides, not really the jinn, but acknowledging he was there, I was asking psychically, how do I remove this curse? And there were two elements to this. There was the magical component using ceremonial magic, and then there was the second component, psychological and emotional work to work through the actual belief system that's been embedded in her from her family. Firstly, let's talk about the ceremonial magic. So because she is Greek, we of course worked with the Greek goddess Hecate. There are a lot of videos on who Hecate is, but she is the divine triple goddess. She's the goddess of crossroads, the underworld, of magic, and of seeing the truth and how things really are. She was the perfect choice to help us remove this jinn. We also used angelic magic in the ritual to support the emotional and psychological process. Whenever you use angelic magic, it's actually invoking angels to change the internal, to bring light and space in here by processing emotions and changing how we perceive things. So Hecate kind of brought in power, strength, solidarity, whilst the angels also brought in the safety, security, and reassurance that it was safe to go into these emotional beliefs and to make sure that she chose the right process and method and person to help her work through that emotional experience. So once she had completed these processes, she came back to me. I tuned into her psychically, and yes, the curse had been lifted. The jinn had returned back to its owner. Now, I want to speak into this for a moment. When you are using your own energy and you're pushing it out into the universe, you're putting it onto someone else, eventually it's going to act like a boomerang and it's going to come back to you. Because as soon as that jinn had been released from the curse, it went back to its owner. She also released the emotion that had been projected onto her from the other family and also her own. So out of the two curses that I've experienced that were real, they were both from an ethnic background because it was very much part of their culture. They were very emotionally expressive and their family or a family member had experience in magical workings. So there's two things to take into consideration if you think you've been cursed. The first one is, does my family, my heritage, or my culture believe in curses? Is it part of what I grew up with? Was my family superstitious? Was it part of our belief system? Is it possible that I believed curses were real? And two, is my mind using a curse as a reason to stop me from acknowledging a feeling that's very hard to process? And it's not that we mean to do it. Sometimes it's completely unconscious. And if you're stuck between these two questions, you can also book a session with me and I will help you uncover whether it's a curse or if it's something else. And we can explore it and find the solution. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to subscribe and like it and share your own experiences with curses down below. I would love to hear from you. Until next time.